Everyone, we'd like to welcome you to today's podcast, The 95% Blind Spot, Why Most SMBs Miss Their Biggest Growth Opportunity. And I am super excited to welcome our guest today, Dan Smink. Dan, welcome.
Stacy, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Dan is founder and president of Refract ROI, a digital marketing agency he launched in 2011 to help small and mid-sized businesses grow smarter and faster. Prior to Refract ROI, Dan held senior marketing roles at global healthcare leaders like Covidien and Thermo Fisher Scientific, where he developed strategies fueling major revenue and valuation gains. And he has a strong educational background shaped by Georgetown, Dartmouth, and Tufts. So we are so excited to have you today. Dan brings a sharp, data-driven approach, and we're going to learn a little bit more about the 95% blind spot. All right, Dan, let's kick things off. We'd like to start with, Dan, we'd like to start with that stat that sparked this whole conversation. The idea that only 5 to 10% of buyers are actively in market at any given time. When you first share this with SMB leaders, what's their typical reaction?
I would say they're caught unawares. It's because most businesses only market to the 5%. And at least I should say most non-enterprise businesses, so less than 100 million in revenue. And it's also true of companies larger than that, but enterprise level businesses are more sophisticated in their marketing. They tend to invest more, especially in the B2C or like the CPG space, which is where, most of the really good marketing is done. And there's so much we can learn from those companies because what they do isn't limited to companies of that size or in that space. We can take the learnings from them and apply them. But most people in the small to medium-sized business world just haven't had the experiences. They haven't had the training. They haven't had the mentorship from, really sound marketing leaders to do this effectively. And so when I talk to them about it, they're like, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's an interesting concept. And then we dig into it and they're like, wow, this really makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's one of those, I was a teacher for a number of years, and it's what I call a teaching moment where you literally like get somebody's attention all of a sudden when they see something that's not expected. You've done a sort of pattern interrupt in your conversation, and they go, "Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Let's talk more about that." So anyway, that's how it's kind of received.
Yeah. So I want to pause here because the concept is so foundational and, as you mentioned, new to many SMB leaders. So can you explain what the 95-5 rule really means and what research shows about, when buyers are actually ready to purchase and how that impacts, marketing?
Yeah. Well, first, I would say that John Dawes, who was the professor that came up with the concept, I should say he labeled the concept with the 595 sort of moniker. And but the concept's been around for many years. I mean, I know I shared articles with you going back to, I think, 2011 or 2015, from like thought leaders like Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, and others, talking about the concept of marketing to both the doing branding marketing and conversion-based marketing, or awareness marketing and conversion-based marketing. And that's sort of at the heart of it. But when he came up with it, his concept was that 5% of the market is buying at any one time. And 95% has a latent need, but isn't ready to buy yet. So the example I use with people is, you walk into a room of 100 people and you say, how many of you are looking to buy a car? Right? So there's 100 people there. And when you say, how many are looking to buy a car in the next 30, 60, 90 days, let's say, 5 to 10 people will raise their hand. The other 90 to 95 people have a need for transportation. It doesn't mean they have a need for a car. 99 of them will probably buy a car. One of them might live close enough to work and whatever that they don't need a car. I have my oldest son lives in Chicago and literally rides a bike to work every day, does not have a car. So he's that 1% outlier, but the other 95% are going to need some sort of transportation, and they're going to buy a car. What that is, we don't know. Could be new, could be used, could be expensive, could be cheap. But those people, there's 95% of them are going to buy a car, but just not in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And the issue for companies, and I would argue this is the core issue from which all marketing emanates. And that is that you have to market to the 5% and the 95%. And if you don't, it's going to make your marketing much less effective.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the articles you had shared talked about, and if we focused on, tech space, which is the area that I focus on for tech B2B, that's every 4 to 5 years, right? So you only have that small percentage. And then of course, all the competition is vying for that very small percent. So it's so important. From your experience then working with SMBs, what does it look like when a company is stuck in that trap? What are some of the symptoms to watch for?
So it's interesting you ask, because we have a client going through this right now. You'll see a couple of things. One, and it's also influenced by the fact that since this data has come out, the amount of spend by companies in more competitive spaces has increased. And so it's only more emphasizing the situation that I'm going to describe. But first, customer acquisition costs go up. Because you're basically competing for more of a smaller piece of the pie, because more and more people are coming in and investing in that space. And then the conversion campaign will sort of plateau at a certain level, and then it will actually either stagnate or decline. We have a home services company that we work with they sell they do roofing and solar and stuff like that. And they are switching from really, 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 really old school marketing, which was canvassing. So they would send people out into neighborhoods and just knock on doors and see if they could get appointments. So, there's no reason for those people to talk to them. There's no reason why they should pick on a certain door. There wasn't any indication of interest. Right. They just knock on the door. Anyway, so they're switching from that to trying to do digital. And we have recommended to them and that they do full funnel marketing. And they are finding out very quickly that it's a struggle to just do conversion-based marketing at the bottom of the funnel. It's expensive, and it doesn't necessarily generate the kind of lead that they want. They tend to be price shoppers instead of value shoppers. They don't have their conversion rates aren't as good because they aren't part of the consideration set to begin with. So it makes their sales team less effective. So, when you look at this, it's you get leads, but it's much harder than it has to be.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you say that, the canvassing and just knocking on every door, because again, we know that you can't move someone into a buying cycle. You have to meet them when they're ready, right?
Right.
However, when when a lot of SMB leaders, when we talk to them, they're like, but we need revenue now. We can't wait 6 to 12 months for this brand awareness to pay off. How do you respond to that?
I totally agree with that. I mean, and we build our campaigns to address that specific issue. Because let's be honest, these are small businesses, and they, have got to have consistent, predictable lead or revenue generation, which is why they come to us. So when we start our campaigns, we start using we start to invest initially in the bottom of the funnel. To get leads generated. But then as that becomes effective and we are able to achieve the, at least the minimum ROAS that we're looking to get, then we start to invest in the upper part of the funnel. And it's going to take time for that to bake in and start to drive the cost of customer acquisition down at the bottom of the funnel. But you can't just start off with a branding campaign.
Right.
because it's not going to get you what you need. It's just making people aware of you.
Hmm.
But in the long run, you want to be in the consideration set so that when people come to buy, they consider less options. They are more likely to buy on value than on price. And
Hmm.
your sales cycle is going to be shorter
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
there's already trust established with the client. That's how, and those three things are what drive the ROI up when you do an omni-channel or full funnel approach.
Love it. Love it. So then you talked about kind of starting out at that immediate conversion, kind of bottom of the funnel, and then moving more towards the top of the
Hmm.
funnel. So from a
Yeah.
resource allocation standpoint, how should SMBs think about balancing investment? And maybe
Yeah.
not from the start, because you said you start, at the
Uh-huh.
immediate returns. But when you get to a kind of a level of balancing, what should that look like between capturing today's 5% and then tomorrow's 95?
So we take what we call a crawl, walk, run approach with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them that to do marketing effectively, you need to spend a minimum of 3 to 5% of revenue on your marketing campaigns. So not including your headcount.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of people say, well, we can't do that. And I say, well, tell me about your sales force, right? And they'll be like, okay, we got 5 salespeople, and I pay them all 100 grand. Let's just, for round numbers sake, they might pay them more. And I say, well, tell me how much time they spend doing cold calling, prospecting, networking, referral lead generation. And they'll say 40, 50, 60, 70% of the time. It's usually a large chunk,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
this is a company that might be spending less than 1% of revenue on marketing. And I tell them, it's kind of like that canvasser example. You're using sales to do marketing's job. You're actually spending somewhere around, you know, 3, 4, 5% of your revenue
Mhm.
using sales to do marketing. So you actually are doing it, but you're doing it with a very blunt instrument.
Mm,
It's very hard to make that switch. They can't just fire 3 salespeople and take all that money and move it into marketing and then say,
mhm,
okay, generate leads tomorrow, right? Doesn't happen that way. So we start slow, usually around 3%, and we focus on lead gen at the bottom and get those running. And as they become more effective and we prove the capability of driving the leads and the conversions that we need,
mhm,
then we start to increase spend. So, 4% by the middle of that first year, 5% by the end of the year.
mhm,
Um, and as we do that, we start to uh, spend. As we add in spend, we'll add it at the top of the funnel, so that ideally by the end of the first year we're at maybe 5% of revenue, but we're
mhm,
spending. The goal is to get to about 50 to 60% of your revenue in the middle and top of funnel,
mhm,
and about 40 to 50% in the bottom of the funnel.
mhm,
And then what I tell people is that in the long run, if you're in a B2B space, you
mhm,
should be spending about 5 to 8%. If
mhm.
you're in a B2C space, you should be spending around 8 to 12% of revenue. These are much bigger numbers that people are used to, so it takes time,
Right,
which is why
right.
we take a very gradual approach.
Absolutely. So, okay, so you're talking a big investment here to reach and nurture the full 95 and 5. So that's significant change in the business.
Can I pause for a second?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think I would argue it's not a big investment. They're already doing it. They're using sales to do
right.
marketing's job.
That's a
So
good point.
they are usually already making the investment. What we're trying to do is get them to reallocate it
Okay.
so
Okay.
that it's being used effectively. We take a crawl, walk, run approach with these clients. And so we'll start investing funds in the bottom of the funnel initially
Uh-huh.
to get lead gen, because small and medium-sized companies need leads yesterday. They don't need them in 6 to 12 months. So we got to get that first. But then once those are proving out that we're getting the ROAS we're looking for, then what we do is we start to invest in the top and the middle of the funnel.
Mhm.
And in about 6 months, I would expect to see good, not great, lead gen and return on ad spend
Mhm.
at the bottom of the funnel, and um, demonstrable effectiveness in terms of driving awareness and preference in the top and the middle of the funnel,
Uh-huh.
such that we're seeing and we're getting ideas about which campaigns work better than others. And then by the end of the year, it's working very effectively. Like the top and the middle of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel all working together. I will say this, that the key thing about doing this is how do you measure it? And you can measure return on investment, and you can measure the efficacy of the campaigns. You do what are called intentionality studies, and using these, you not only gain significant insights about your customer and your market, but you're also able to demonstrate the lift that the top of the funnel gives to the bottom of the funnel, and the return on investment related to doing top of the funnel work as well as bottom of the funnel work. This is stuff that usually very sophisticated, big market or big company marketing does, but it's becoming more available to small, medium-sized companies. You just have to know how to do it and where to ask for it. And then you can see if it's doing well or not.
And I know you're bringing this into a lot of your customers. I mean, ROI is in your name, in your company name.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through a real example, without naming names, of a company you've worked with and the results they were able to achieve?
Sure, be happy to. So this is an example that's just at the bottom of the funnel. The client we'd been with them for a couple of years, and they brought in somebody to run marketing who purportedly has a strong digital marketing background. And this person came in and said, I expect at least a 4-to-1 ROAS. And we do a financial model when we work with a client before we ever engage with them. And so we knew that the potential in this company was at least 10 to 20 to 1. And we told them that. We're like, we should do well beyond that. I think 4-to-1 is not aggressive enough. And then we executed the campaign, and we were able to achieve a 14-to-1 return on ad spend.
Wow.
And it was something that we were able to get to because of, one, what we knew ahead of time, but then two, linking it to their actual internal data around close rate, revenue per sale, gross margin, to determine what was possible and then to actually execute on it effectively.
Wonderful. Wow. That's so exciting. Dan, this is so interesting and just learning a lot. I'm very excited for some SMBs to kind of learn more about the 95% blind spot. And I know we're going to dig into the operational side in a second episode with your, performance guru, Lauren. But as we close, at a strategic level, what's the one mindset shift you want SMB leaders to take away from this conversation?
I'd say it's two things. One, the upper funnel matters more than you would ever realize. And it's only becoming more and more important as markets get more and more sophisticated around digital marketing. And so as more people are, competing at the bottom of the funnel, you have to do something else to make sure that you're in the consideration set when it comes time for people to buy. And the only way you do that is with top of the funnel and middle of the funnel marketing. So if you're not doing this, you're behind. That's point one. Point two is you can measure it. You can tell if you're getting a good return on investment. It's not something that is widely used in the small, medium-sized business space, but finding an expert that can help you do intentionality studies to understand the effectiveness of your total omni-channel campaign, and what kind of return on investment you're actually getting, and what is the lift that's being provided by the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel efforts will let you put your finger on what's actually happening and decide what works and what doesn't work. So those two things, upper funnel matters more than you'll ever realize, and two, you can measure it, are the two things that I would leave people with.
Love it. Love it very much. Well, Dan, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
Loved it.
absolutely. And for our readership and viewership, both Refract ROI and your CMO, we're collaborating together to develop some more resources for you on the 95/5 rule. And so we'll be sharing that and potentially have available in the links below. And we just thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast and hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you again, Dan. Bye, everyone.